Okay, so you want to buy a McDonald's and figure out the profit you'll make. We know money isn't a problem for you, but are you ready to scrub 500 toilets for free? And that's only the beginning of what McDonald's needs from you before they'll even consider you. The price of a McDonald's depends on where exactly you plan to open it. Let's start with the most expensive option, the United States. Where the brand was born, the biggest and toughest market, and the most competitive one too. To open a new location, you'll need an average of $1.4 to $2.7 million. This covers everything: equipment, rent, renovation, launch, plus a one-time payment to the corporation itself, which they call a franchise fee. That's $45,000 just for the right to use the McDonald's name. You could go to the bank, take out a loan for the whole amount, and open what's basically a guaranteed profitable business. Unfortunately, no, you can't do this on borrowed money. Out of those $2 million, at least $500,000 must be your own cash. Not borrowed, not financed. A kind of proof that you're actually a businessman and not just a random person with a loan. But $2 million is the price only in the US. For the same money, in other countries, you can open 2 McDonald's instead of 1. So before deciding, it's worth comparing the markets. In Europe, opening a McDonald's is cheaper. For example, in the UK, the full cost of a restaurant runs between £900,000 and £1.5 million, which is roughly €1 to 1.7 million euros. In Germany, it's about the same, around 1.4 million euros, and one of the cheapest markets is Eastern Europe, for instance, Poland. There, the full cost of a McDonald's starts at around 1 million euros. But choosing a country isn't just about money, it's also about whether you can legally do it at all. In some countries, McDonald's simply doesn't sell licenses to private individuals. In India, for example, every McDonald's belongs to one of 2 companies. Westlife Food World controls the South and West, and Connaught Plaza Restaurants handles the North and East. Companies like this are called master franchisees. Same story across Latin America. The entire market is in the hands of a single company called Arcos Dorados, which controls McDonald's in 21 countries. No matter how much money you have, you won't open a McDonald's directly from the corporation there. At best, you can become a sub-franchisee under the local monopoly and pay fees not just to McDonald's, but to another middleman on top. Let's say you've decided to open it in the US, the most expensive but also the most prestigious market. You've got your $2 million and you're ready to sign a contract with the corporation. But here's the problem. You've been rejected because you didn't pass the selection. And this is completely unusual for a franchise. In most other chains, the logic is simple. If you have money, you have a contract. But at McDonald's, you first have to prove that you even deserve to stand next to their brand. And you prove it not in an interview, but in practice. Here's what practice looks like. You, a potential millionaire owner, spend 6 to 12 months working in one of the existing McDonald's restaurants. Unpaid. If you want to go full-time, that's 35 hours a week, and you'll finish in 6 months. Part-time is 20 hours a week, and it takes 10 to 12 months. So yes, you pull up in your Lamborghini and stand at the cash register, fry the potatoes, scrub the toilets, wear the same uniform as the 17-year-old kid next to you. And this goes on for up to a year, until the corporation decides you've learned enough. At the same time, you're sent to a place that McDonald's quite seriously calls Hamburger University. It's their internal university in Chicago. There they teach you everything, from how to calculate food costs to how to manage 60 employees, most of whom would rather be anywhere else. And of course, at the end, there's an exam. But even if you pass, it still doesn't mean you'll get a restaurant, because for every available location in the system, there are dozens of applications, and the corporation picks whoever they like best. They've already seen your money. Now they're looking at your biography, your experience, your family, how you behaved during those 12 months of practice, and only one person makes the decision: the field vice president. By this point, you're probably losing hope, Because it sounds like the only people who get into this system are well-connected millionaires who are willing to scrub toilets for free for a year just for the idea. But you can become the owner of dozens of McDonald's restaurants without any connections at all. Meet Vijay Selhi. In 1983, Vijay came to the US from a small village called Mukanpur in India. He was about 25 years old. No money, no connections, and his English wasn't great either. He got a job as a regular cashier at a McDonald's in the town of Somerville, Massachusetts. Minimum wage, night shifts, grease on the uniform, and decades of hard work. From cashier, he worked his way up to shift leader, then manager, then territorial supervisor. For 32 years, he climbed that ladder step by step, and in 2015, when he was almost 60, he finally had enough money and reputation to buy his first 2 McDonald's. One of those 2 restaurants was the same one in Somerville, where 32 years earlier he had stood at the register. Today, Vijay and his sons own 19 McDonald's restaurants, and judging by his interviews, he's not planning to stop. If you're not ready to repeat Vijay's path, but you still want your own McDonald's, your path still starts with those same 6 to 12 months of practice and Hamburger University. From there, you have a choice. Either wait for McDonald's to open a new location and give it to you, which could take years, or go the easier route and buy an existing restaurant from someone who's already in the system and wants out. That's actually how most new franchisees enter the US system. And lucky for you, there are more owners right now who want out than at any point in the last decades, and there are reasons for that. Back to December 2020. McDonald's sends its franchisees an email. The corporation raises technology fees, removes the Happy Meal subsidy, and adds new mandatory payments. In total, that's an extra $12,000 per restaurant per year, and there are 13,000 McDonald's in the US. With a single email, the corporation took $170 million away from its own partners. The reaction was unprecedented in the 70 years of McDonald's existence. 95% of franchisees voted for a communication pause with the corporation. They stopped answering emails, ignored directives, and sabotaged internal processes. In January 2026, they signed the Franchisee Bill of Rights. 15 points about what the corporation does not have the right to do to franchisees. The main one, the right to set their own prices. Meaning, if an owner in New York charges $8 for a Big Mac because his rent and wages are higher, the corporation can't come in and say, "Too expensive, sell it for $6 or get out." Meet George R. Michel, Hispanic American, franchisee since 1990. 37 restaurants, $158 million in annual revenue. Over the past few years, he invested $20 million in renovations that the corporation demanded. And then McDonald's said they wouldn't renew his contracts and offered to buy out all his restaurants significantly below market value. His daughter, who also applied for a franchise, was denied. And they hinted that until her father voluntarily sold 30 of his restaurants, the daughter wouldn't get her license. Michel filed a lawsuit in federal court in New York, accusing the corporation of racial discrimination. The case is still ongoing, and Michel isn't the first case like this. Herbert Washington, once the largest black franchisee with 27 restaurants, spent years in court with McDonald's over racial discrimination. Eventually, the corporation bought out 13 of his restaurants for $33.5 million, on the condition that Washington left the system and dropped the lawsuit. His quote in court, "Inside McDonald's, there are 2 systems." Hopefully, none of these stories killed your appetite for buying a McDonald's. But before you walk into your own restaurant in your expensive suit to grab a double cheeseburger, let's actually calculate how much you'd really make on this. Or how much you could lose. Let's start with the baseline scenario in the US. You finally get the keys to your McDonald's and, along with them, the list of monthly payments to the corporation. There are 4 payments. The first and biggest is the rent. The land and the building always belong to McDonald's, not to you. And for rent, you usually give up between 8% and 18% of your revenue, and in some locations that number can go as high as 31.75%. Almost a third of everything the restaurant earned that month. The second is the royalty fee, 4% of revenue for the right to use the brand. The third, marketing fee, another 4% of revenue for McDonald's global advertising. And the fourth is the technology fee, payment for POS systems, the mobile app, and all the software. About $5,000 per restaurant per year, and this number keeps going up. Each of these payments seems small on its own. Now imagine what they look like together, using a specific example. Your restaurant makes the network's average revenue about $4 million a year. Out of those $4 million, the corporation takes about 20% through rent, royalty, and marketing, which is $800,000. Another $2.9 million goes to food, wages for 60 employees, utilities, taxes, and the technology fee. Net, you're left with about $300,000 a year. To earn back your $2 million, you'll need 6 to 7 years of honest daily work. Now, if you're from Europe, net, you end up with about 150,000 euros to 250,000 euros a year. Payback is about 5 to 7 years, which is about the same as in the US. And now the bad scenario. Around year 6, when you've almost broken even, the corporation doesn't renew your 20-year contract. For the same reasons as Michelle or Washington, for example. They offer to buy the restaurant from you at 70% of its market value. Everything you built goes to McDonald's. And at that moment, it becomes obvious that making money off McDonald's could have been much simpler. Over the last 20 years, McDonald's corporation stock has grown by 700%. The same $2 million invested in stock instead of a restaurant 20 years ago would be worth $16 million today. No strict selection, no hamburger university, no scrubbing toilets.